Hey guys, what's up? It's Eli, and I'm making this video because this is something I've wanted to do for a while, even before the quarantine times and all that stuff. But since we're in the middle of the quarantine times, I've been thinking about it more and more, and so I just decided today I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and it's making a grappling dummy. I wanna preface all of this by saying I'm not a very handy guy. I don't do a lot of construction stuff. I don't build a whole lot of things. I think the last thing that I really built labor intensive was a lemonade stand for my daughter when she was around 7 years old, and she's 16 now. So that kind of gives you a reference point. So I'm hoping that this is fairly easy to do even with somebody with my extremely novice craftsmanship skills. The way that we're gonna do it today might be a little bit time consuming, but it's gonna be way cheaper in some cases than what you would be able to order. And it's gonna take us a little while to do it, but it's hopefully gonna pay off because the quality of it's gonna be really high. As far as what I'm really going for on this is articulation. I want something that's gonna be very easy to use, very applicable to a lot of different submissions, positions, how I can rearrange it, how I can manipulate it. So that's what we're kind of going for. Behind me, over here, are the materials that I'm gonna use. And I'll explain each of these materials. PVC pipe. This is gonna be kind of the cornerstone of the skeleton of this thing. And what we're gonna do with this is, as we build out the skeleton, I'm gonna run rope through each section of this to kind of attach it in different pieces. But then we also have joints. Basically, we're using about 4 different kinds of joints on this. There's gonna be a 90-degree little joint here like this, and this should match up very nicely to this piece here. I could actually insert it, but I'm not going to for what we're doing, and I'll explain why in just a second. There's also this 45-degree too. So this isn't quite as bent as the 90-degree one, but this is gonna give us something maybe a little bit better, I'm hoping, in the elbows and in the knees. Whereas these might work better for around the hips, around the shoulders. And so we're gonna see how it works. Other joints that we're using here, I have this kind of quad one here like this, and we're looking at this for the shoulder carriage. So I'm gonna have the spine run up into it, coming out by the neck, have the shoulders fitting into the sides here, and then we'll insert our 90-degree pieces. So these things are all gonna kind of fit together. We also have this one here that I'm gonna be using for the hips, and we're gonna kind of build a pelvis out of that, hopefully. Of course, we have to have lots and lots of duct tape. I've got about 6 rolls over here, and surely that's gonna be enough. I'm hoping that I've got plenty left over. So I mentioned before about how I'm not gonna directly insert the PVC into the little hinges like this, but I could. What I'm actually wanting to do, and I got this idea from watching Kevin Secures built one just for one leg, and he did this. So this is kind of interesting concept. He ran the spring, and this is like a door spring, like you would put on maybe a screen door. He ran this into the PVC pipe this way, and then this piece goes on the end of it. So if we attach these things here, so we still have an ankle joint, and we still have the bone that would be the tibia, or this could be the foot in this case too, so it would go 2 different directions. But what we're gonna wind up with, once we fill the spaces, is something that can actually bend like this. So now we can rotate and bend different directions. So when you're applying submissions, you don't want just like some stiff bar that you're trying to do something and it's not moving. So my hope and the goal of this is once we have this and we have it attached and filled, then we're gonna have a joint we can actually manipulate and put a submission on. Now there's gonna be a little bit of extra space on some of these. So for that reason, we have some different fillers. We can use different rags as different fillers. We can use foam that'll be left over from our pool noodles, and the pool noodles will be important for giving our skeleton a little bit of padding to it. So once we insert the PVC into the foam noodle, then that's gonna give us a little bit more bulk, so it's gonna feel like an actual limb instead of just a bone. There will still be some different spaces that are gonna need to be filled. So for that, I bought some of this great stuff, and this is a foam filler. So what we'll do is we'll spray this into little gaps, and that's gonna expand and fill out. And then once that's filled out that space a little bit, we'll secure it with more duct tape, and then hopefully that'll be a better joint or better limb. As we mentioned before, what we'll be running through these different joints and through the different pieces of PVC once we have it all cut up will be some rope. I just got some basic standard rope here, basically the cheapest I could find, because it doesn't have to be anything stronger than what's just gonna like loop through and maybe tie off to ends of springs here like this, or coming through and actually being knotted at the end. We're gonna need a saw, obviously, to cut the PVC because I got two 10-foot strips over here. Again, I'm planning to have some left over. I just wanted to make sure I got too much instead of not enough. And the final two parts that we're gonna be using, maybe, and I'm not sure about this until it's all said and done, but I got some coveralls. So with the coveralls, my plan is to stuff the skeleton into or cover the skeleton that I build out with the coveralls so that then I can pad it up as much as I need to make it bulkier. More bulking here is this. It's just a military duffel bag, and it's filled up with some old clothing, some old sheets and stuff like that, but it gives a nice firm, this actually was a throwing bag that a friend of mine made for himself just to do bag slams and to do some ground and pound work on it. But we're gonna be using this as part of it to build out the trunk of this to make it a little more fat, right? So the next step in the process is gonna be for us to go through and measure out all the different bones that we're gonna need. So things along the lines of from collarbone to collarbone to the shoulders, for the humerus, for the different forearms, for the shins, for the thighs. And then once we have all those mapped out, we'll be using our saw to cut these things up. All right, guys, so again, I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never done this before, and I'm not a very handy guy, but that's kind of the purpose of the video, because if I can do it, then pretty much anybody can do it, especially if you have better access to a shop or some tools or anything like that. So wish me luck, and we'll see how the final product turns out. To make the process as simple as possible, rather than going through every length of every limb and every section of every limb and measuring it out, just use your own anatomy. So basically what I would do is measure out the approximate length of my forearm, and then that's my forearm length, and then I'll mark it, and then I cut at that area. So what's gonna happen after that is you're gonna start to see certain patterns appear, and you really only need 2 links for the entire process. You'll need about, you'll need 7 of these. This is gonna be everywhere from your upper arm, your forearm, your foot, your pelvic girdle here like this, and that should make about 7 pieces. So that really simplifies it a lot. The secondary length here, this is gonna be across the shoulders, this is gonna be the length of the torso, and it's gonna be the upper and lower legs. So you're gonna need 6 of those. So basically by cutting just into those 2 different measurements and cutting the right number of pieces, you're really gonna simplify out the process. You wanna make it as simple as possible because it's already a bit of an involved process and it's gonna take a little bit of time, but that's gonna help it go along a lot faster by knowing you only have to have 2 different links as you go. So now we're looking at the connections between the pelvis or the collarbones into the shoulders, into the hips, into the knees. So we're looking at these different joints, and these are gonna be our 90-degree joints. This will be by the hips and by the shoulders. Now, this is kind of the unique thing about this one, because I'm not just making a straight connection of where we could just fit this into the connector here. Like that works perfectly fine. The problem is you don't get any rotation. I mean, the rotation is going to be very difficult and it's going to pop apart. So to fix that and to give it a little bit more like ergonomical, and to give it a little bit more like an anatomical honesty to it, I guess, we're gonna take this spring here, and this is that door spring I mentioned before, and we're gonna put it through this joint. Now, it's kind of difficult because there's a 90-degree turn in it. So we're gonna take some of this rope and we're gonna feed it through this connector like this. Now, once it's through there, we're gonna loop it through the end of our spring here and put the piece back through. So we're looping like that and feeding it back through the end that it went in on, like this. Now, I'm gonna take both of those pieces and I'm gonna pull, and this should help me like this to turn it there. So now we have this spring that's actually going through the joint at that 90-degree bend. Now we have our hip here like this. And so now once we have this connector here, I'm gonna feed it into this hip. This is gonna be like our pelvic girdle here like this. And then we'll take the other piece. And then once we feed it into here, then we'll take this longer piece, which is gonna be like the femur, and insert it here. Now, in just a moment, what I'm gonna do is tie these pieces off so that there's a connection where at the end of it, where this ring sits on these springs here, we'll use some of our rope and tie around the end of it to take it all the way through the bone or across the hip like that. So what we've got so far is this torso piece here coming down to the pelvis here, and then this is going to be the hip connection. Now what you'll see in the hip connection here is the spring is fed through and it's connected with a rope, and the rope is serving as kind of a connective tissue between going down to the knee where the next spring is going through, and this is one of those 45-degree bends. This is a 90 here, but then this spring is going through, the rope continues on down here this way, and as we keep on moving, we're here and it goes into the ankle. This will serve as the ankle. The spring continues through, and then the rope comes all the way out. The spring continues on into the foot. I'm going to keep this PVC pipe here actually connected to the joint so that it imitates the connection, the curvature of the heel into the foot like that a little better, but we'll have that bend there. So that's going to give us all the range of motion that we need to actually apply joint locks, and we'll maintain some rotation so that even whenever we apply duct tape to these different joints, then it's still going to maintain a lot of the not as much rotation. It's going to keep it a little bit more to the natural shape of what it would be, but it's going to allow us a little bit more range of motion in the bend of the joint itself. So as we're continuing on here, I have gotten to the shoulders. So this is basically the shoulder carriage here. This is going to be the spine, I guess, as it were. And I've run the rope through. What I'm having to use the rope for is to actually hook around the ends of these springs to pull them through the joints, because it's pretty stiff coming through there, but it's got a nice bend to it and it's got some good flexion to it too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert this piece here. I'm going to have to pull the rope through and then actually insert this into the PVC here. So what that's doing now is that's making the shoulder. So that shoulder is going to have a good range of motion. It's going to have some good bend and flex to it like that. I am going to secure it with duct tape around here and on the inside here too, so that even though it will tear a little bit, the fibers are going to keep it connected so that it doesn't completely like pull it completely out of socket like that. At least not very easily. I would really have to try it really hard once this is fully encased to make that happen. And then we'll start to bulk it out a little bit with some different padding and some different foam. The next step in the process then is now we have to look at making the humerus coming off of the shoulder. So I'm going to take the rope here, the piece that's coming out of that shoulder hinge, and then I'm going to run it through. I find this a little easier because this came off like a little frazzled and weird like that, to put it through looped this way. It goes down a lot easier through here, through the other end. And I'm going to pull that free, and now attach that to the spring here. So now we have collarbone over the shoulder to humerus. So we see that we can move that around pretty good, and we have that spring allowing for some twisting and some torquing. So that's going to make it really nice whenever we start to look at going through different shoulder locks. So I'm going to be able to come around and look for kimuras, for Americanas, also to straighten it completely out for a straight arm bar as well. Okay, so at this point I have gotten the pelvis and the legs, springs, ropes, everything like that, the hinge joints, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and so I'm testing it out here, and this is the range of motion that I've gotten so far. So that's pretty cool, because the duct tape is doing its job, and the job of the duct tape is to have this kind of fibrous but adhesive kind of quality to it, to where it allows you some kind of movement but also seals as it does that. So if I were to say go and entangle the legs as they were, and again this is just the skeleton, we'll apply the foam, we'll bulk it out, we'll re-duct tape it, we'll put a suit around it, but right here I am in this inside kind of control. I've got the leg entanglement, and so it's allowing me to pull the legs close enough to where I can get a full leg entanglement here. So I've got clover leaf, I've got straight ankle lock here like this, and you can see the range of motion. There's going to be some tear in the tape, but it's going to hold in place though, because that's what it's supposed to do, and it's going to allow that spring to do its job. Now I've also got the ability to heel hook here too, so you see that I can cup here on the heel this way. I can grab the heel itself, which will be even easier once I get it padded, and then apply all the different heel hooks and everything too. So yeah, this is pretty cool so far. So pretty excited about the progress of it. We've still got the arms, upper torso, padding, everything else to do, but it's coming along pretty nicely.